Hey, what is up, everybody? It's your boy AJ Trip. Coming at you another reaction video here. Our good friends over at List25 came up with the 25 best video game consoles of all time. So I'm not sure how they're gonna go. I think we're probably gonna get a lot of smaller video games and things like that. But my guess would be is that Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, the regular Nintendo they should be in the top 10. They should be in the top 10, even though they are like 8-bit and 16-bit and everything like that, compared to what we have now with Xbox and PlayStation 4 and all those things. But this should be, those three, SNES, NES, and other stuff, they should be in the top 10. I might even say top 5, but we will see. Let's go ahead and let's check it out.
Video game consoles have come a long way. First starting with Atari's Pong in 1972, a game where you just bounced a white dot back and forth, we now have hyper-realistic 3D graphics, online play, and virtual reality headsets. In 1972, it's unlikely anyone could have imagined what video games would be like today. Throughout the past few decades, consoles have come and gone, with great virtues and some even worse flaws. Some systems were great, but flopped in the market, while others succeeded beyond everyone's wildest expectations. So, how do these systems rank? You're about to find out. I'm Mike with List25, and here are 25 best video game consoles of all time. Released in 1972, the Magnavox Odyssey was one of the first video game consoles ever released. It had just entered the market months before Atari released the runaway success of Pong. Despite the Odyssey being arguably superior, it only sold 300,000 units and was not a commercial success. Created by Mattel in 1979, Intellivision saw a relatively considerable amount of success at the time, selling over 3 million units and releasing 125 games. It boasted superior graphics to its rivals in a major ad campaign and secured a solid footing in the industry. But by 1983, its successor, the Intellivision II, saw major losses and increased competition from Atari. It eventually was forced out of the market in 1984. If it weren't for the video game market collapse in 1984, it's quite possible ColecoVision would have become one of the most popular video game consoles, and Nintendo Entertainment System wouldn't have even become a thing. By copying a lot of Atari's tech and finding a way to make partnerships with a number of game developers, it dominated the market for a short period. The other thing that made it a success was its expansion modules, but that model later backfired. The Atari Jaguar was Atari's last foray into the console business, and unfortunately, it flopped hard. With a high price tag, a poor gaming library, and a deceptive ad campaign that backfired, the Atari Jaguar didn't last long among the dominance of the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. Despite some of its major flaws, it was a relatively powerful system and foresaw the emergence of CDs as a format to play video games. If executed correctly, it might have snuck up on its competitors, and that's exactly what Sega's president was scared of. During its heyday, Atari unleashed the Atari 5200 in 1982 with the hopes of crushing Intellivision and countering ColecoVision. While it certainly had stellar graphics at the time, both its horribly designed controller and rehashed games gave people a bad taste in their mouth. Despite that, it outsold its competitors, but likely also brought about the great video game crash in 1984. Despite being ultimately flawed and overhyped, the 3DO had a few unique things going for it in 1993. It was the first multimedia video game system, allowing it to play audio, video, and pictures, along with video games. It also utilized CDs and boasted a 32-bit system, but its business model did it in. The company made the mistake of licensing out its hardware to other companies like Panasonic, Goldstar, and Sanyo. Its high price tag for both the system and games didn't help it either. However, it would certainly be a precursor to the systems to come.
19.
The TurboGrafx-16 was created to counter the Nintendo Famicom in Japan, and actually succeeded in outselling systems there until the Super Famicom. Unfortunately, it didn't have the same luck in the United States. It was an instant flop when Sega released the Genesis. Still, it wasn't so much a bad system as a badly timed system. Looking back, it had a good library of games and was a solid system all around. It just got snuffed out by bigger competition.
18.
The Atari 7800 was actually a pretty good system, all things considered. It had 100% backwards compatibility with the 2600, and for the first time allowed for high scores to be saved. It also had much better processing capabilities. But the 1984 video game crash and bad management, along with owners, squashed any real chance it had. Once the Nintendo Entertainment System came out in 1986, it was game over.
17.
In many ways, the Sega Saturn was Sega's Atari Jaguar, which makes it even more ironic considering the Atari Jaguar scared then Sega president Hayao Nakayama. In retrospect, he should have been scared of Sony's upcoming PlayStation. Either way, the Sega Saturn was slated to release in the fall, but the company panicked and released it so early there wasn't any marketing for it to build anticipation. Few retailers carried it, it had few games, and the price tag was way too high. Once Sony announced an even lower price tag, that was the last nail in the coffin.
16.
Developed by Japanese video gaming company SNK, the Neo Geo took on a variety of forms, but is most memorable for its AES, Advanced Entertainment System. At the time, the price was astronomical, making it a rare commodity. Still, hardcore gamers with money to spare shelled out the cash for SNK's games. Despite a clunky controller the size of the system, Neo Geo had incredible graphics and sound. Today, the system is a retro collector's dream.
15.
With the failure of the Sega Saturn, Sega needed a hit, and fast, since Sony PlayStation and the Nintendo 64 were dominating the market, and Sega was nowhere to be seen. They carefully marketed and hyped their latest system, hoping that a powerful system, stellar graphics, and Sonic Adventure could seal the deal. Unfortunately, while the Dreamcast didn't flop as badly as the Saturn, it barely sold as many units as the Saturn, making it their last system.
14.
With the massive success of the Nintendo Wii, Nintendo was eager to replicate its success. While the Wii U boasted a large touchscreen, HDMI connectivity, Wii backwards compatibility, and more powerful graphics than ever, their poor marketing of the system and a high price ultimately drove customers away. It was an instant flop, and the lowest sold product in their history. Despite that, it's still a pretty great system with a bevy of quality Nintendo games.
13.
The Sega Master System was essentially a repackaged version of the Sega Mark III that was selling well in Japan. It was brought over to North America after the crash in 1984, since Nintendo had been showing overwhelming success in the market. However, Sega struggled to steal any ground from Nintendo, only selling 125,000 consoles. In comparison, Nintendo sold 2 million. Still, the system was arguably better than Nintendo's, with a solid lineup of games and features.
12.
With Sony PlayStation popularizing CD-based video gaming into the console market, Nintendo had to make a choice between cartridges or CDs for their next system. They went with CDs and called their new system the GameCube, though it had been rumored to be called the Dolphin. While it competed with the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox, it didn't include online gaming, and paled in comparison on a technological level. And while it wasn't quite as popular, it had plenty of notable games and its own niche of loyal Nintendo followers.
11.
In 2000, Bill Gates went public with the Xbox console and it took off in North America. They sold 1 million Xboxes in just 3 weeks. The powerful processing power along with the hit game Halo made the system an instant success. Halo also helped them popularize online gaming. However, critics quickly pointed out its unusually large console size, bulky controllers, the Duke, and lack of quality third-party games as a major weakness to the system.
10.
With Sega gobbling up much of its market share with the Genesis and Sony nipping at its heels, Nintendo needed to release a stellar new system to compete. That system was the Nintendo 64. While it struggled to maintain its dominance with a high price tag and lack of third-party support, the Nintendo 64 had many defining and revolutionary features in games, including the controller with a trigger button, the Rumble Pack, and the introduction of Mario 64, GoldenEye, and Zelda Ocarina of Time.
9.
The Sega Genesis was the first true 16-bit video game system. Sega released it in 1989, hoping to get a jump on the curve and steal Nintendo's total dominance on the North American market. It took Genesis 2 years to finally become popular, all thanks to Sonic the Hedgehog, a new bundle, and a price drop. Many consider the Genesis to be one of the best consoles ever made, with a fantastic lineup of games.
8.
Released in 1990 by Nintendo, the Super Nintendo was the 16-bit sequel to the Nintendo Entertainment System. Upon release, it was a huge success. With Nintendo's firm grasp on the market, millions purchased the system, though after a while it lost market share to Sega. Many of its games revolutionized the gaming industry, including Mario Kart, Final Fantasy, and Zelda: A Link to the Past. Its controller was also one of the first to utilize the left and right pads.
7.
The Xbox 360 learned from its mistakes, creating a smaller machine and a well-designed controller. It hit even harder with its lineup of games and came out a year before the PlayStation 3. However, its greatest flaw was the dreaded red ring of death. The system would suddenly crash, and a red ring would appear on the usual green ringed light on the system. Microsoft had to shell out $1 billion to recall the system and replace them.
6.
The Atari 2600 totally revolutionized video game console history, showcasing that video games can be played not just in an arcade, but at home as well. At the time, the system sold 30 million consoles and totally dominated the market.
The top 5.
Basically, the godfather of video game consoles, video gamers have it to thank for the entire industry. Unfortunately, it also brought video games crashing down in 1984.
5.
Coming off the heels of massive success with the PlayStation 2, Sony needed a successor that would do just as well, if not better. When the PlayStation 3 came out, it was the most advanced system ever designed, with an advanced processor, Blu-ray support, HDMI, and high-speed internet connectivity. Its greatest downfall on release was that it had few games and a high price tag. But eventually the market leveled out, and people adapted the system. Increased competition from Nintendo and Microsoft made PlayStation 3 not as much of a success.
4.
Originally an add-on to the Super Nintendo, the Sony PlayStation came about thanks to a contract dispute between the two companies. Sony dived in and developed their own system, introducing one of the first 3D gaming systems using CDs. Hot off the console wars between Sega and Nintendo, Sony totally shook up the market with its relatively inexpensive system and games. Things would never be the same again.
3.
With competition closing in from both Sony and Microsoft, and the GameCube doing subpar, Nintendo needed a serious win to stay in the market. Enter Nintendo Wii. While it didn't have the most powerful processing power, its true power came from its innovative motion sensing controls. Appealing to a large swath of casual gamers, the Nintendo Wii could be enjoyed by pretty much everyone. It also had a cheaper price tag. Ultimately, it became Nintendo's best-selling system to date and put them back on top, forcing other systems to adopt the same motion controls.
2.
PlayStation 2 is one of the most well-regarded and successful systems in video game console history. It sold the most systems ever, with 130 million units, and was able to kill off VHS for good with its DVD playability. Not only that, but its amazing lineup of games cemented its value and defined video games going forward.
1.
After 1984, the video game market had collapsed due to a lack of confidence by consumers. No one wanted those video game systems that didn't work and weren't any good. Then, in 1985, Nintendo released the Nintendo Entertainment System and saved the day, rebuilding confidence and completely overtaking the market share. The NES released tons of great games, like Super Mario, Zelda, Final Fantasy, and more, which are still popular franchises to this day. Without the NES, video games wouldn't be where they are today. So, what was your first video game console? Mine was the Sega Genesis. And which is your favorite? Probably the Xbox One. Let us know in the comments below, or tweet your answer to us at List25. And don't forget to add me on Xbox Live. Enjoying our lists? Be sure to click that subscribe button on the bottom right and the notification bell so you don't miss out on new ones every Monday through Friday. Share them with friends and help us consistently conciliate curiosity. And if you want even more lists, check out these videos here or just head to our website at list25.com.
Oh man, takes me back, man. I love when I can get nostalgic, man. Oh, the NES was my first one, man. I loved it. The Mario Junk Hunt thing, and you would go, and then you shoot the gun. You hit the gun. Then I won. I played a game on Nickelodeon, right? I played a game on Nickelodeon, and I got the Sega Genesis from there. Now I won the Sega Genesis, and I get Altered Beast and Sonic the Hedgehog. Oh, I love that, man. I love that, man. That was incredible. I loved Sonic, and I love Altered Beast. Altered Beast is pretty good too. And then later I got the Super Nintendo, and I got that, and actually, to be very honest, I actually think that was actually my mom. If I think my mom, she wanted the Super Nintendo, and so she bought it for herself. she loved Mario. She loved to play Mario and everything like that. So she got the Super Nintendo for herself. But I obviously played it and everything like that. So. Like, and see that. So see, like, that's what I want to. I want to get that from my mom. I really do. I really do. I really hope. I really hope something happens. Maybe with this next thing that I gotta do with thing, and then I can get her. And I can get her like a Super Nintendo Classic or something. Whether it be from Amazon or from eBay or whatever, I get her a Super Nintendo Classic, and she can, have those games and everything like that, and play those games or something like that. So, I would like to do that for her. She can go back old school. Yeah. So yeah, man, it was crazy. I'm kind of surprised PlayStation 4 didn't make it on there. I'm not surprised about Sony PlayStation. Once the PlayStation came out, I think it pretty much dominated the universe. PlayStation, they had PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, and then PlayStation 3, all in the top 5. Yeah, man. Some of those things were incredible. Some of those things I think, like Sega tried, and I think Sega's doing it right now. Because I actually just pre-ordered a Sega's Classic thing, and I think that's what they're doing now. That is good. They are now making games for PlayStation, and I think they might be making it for Xbox too. I'm not sure, but that's what you kind of need to do. I will say this, and I say this all of these companies should be, they should be trying to gather all of their games and make a classics connection and send it out for PlayStation and for Xbox if they can, because it was it's incredible, man. It brings, because people like me are gonna buy it. I've been saying it. I've put it on Twitter 3 or 4 times already. I want a Zombies Ate My Neighbors, because I started playing Zombies Ate My Neighbors on these online emulators, right? And it just brought it back. And then someone created a Zombies Ate My Neighbors. They created their own game, and they made it crazy, and it's fun. So if they could, so if the people at Konami and LucasArts and everything like that, they can, get their original, get that one, and then create another one. And then create another one and put it all in one game. Oh, classic. So, I really do. And then we had last year's Sonic, but long-time subscribers to my channel, they know that I was all about Sonic. So I was all about Sonic last year, and it was a very good game. It's a very good game. It brought me back old school, man. I enjoyed the heck out of that. So it's just so fun. So yeah, post your comments down below. Tell me what you guys thought. That brings me back, man. It brings me back. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you guys so much for watching. This is your boy AJ Tripp signing off. As always, be good to each other, y'all. Be careful out there, and I am out.